Have you ever wanted to ruin someone's life, but not quite had the guts to go through with it? If so, your predicament is understandable. I mean, it can be difficult. You would have to, say, perhaps look in some law books, think of a specific crime to accuse them of. And if you wanted them to get into serious trouble, you might have to bring them before a court of law, where they would have the opportunity to cross-examine you, and their guilt would, in theory at least, have to be proven beyond reasonable doubt. But false accusers of the world do not despair, because the government has recently released perhaps the greatest liar's charter in the history of Britain. The vetting and barring scheme is aimed allegedly at preventing unsuitable people from working with kids. It applies to teachers, educational professionals, a whole range of people, and potentially volunteers as well. And let me reassure you, just because this is not a court of law, just because this is extrajudicial, do not imagine that this cannot ruin someone's life as efficiently as many a court. Anybody who wishes to work with kids from now on, anybody already working with kids, will have to apply for clearance from this scheme, and should they fail the test, they will be barred upon pain of imprisonment from working with kids. Should they reapply to work in their chosen career, perhaps in their established career, they face imprisonment. So this can really ruin someone's life. But the great thing is, for false accusers of the world, is that it's far, far easier to ruin someone's life through this system. First of all, you don't even have to think of a specific law that they have broken. A person doesn't even need to have even broken the law to potentially be thrown out of their job by state fiat. Indeed, it's clear from the vetting and barring scheme's own guidance that virtually any activity, criminal or otherwise, can be used to justify a ban. While the guidance for caseworkers who decide on people's futures offers a list of relevant conduct, naughty things that would get you banned from working with kids, it makes clear that you must look out for instances of behaviour which, although not relevant conduct or otherwise in themselves determinative of potential risk, give rise to concerns when looked at cumulatively that someone may pose a risk of harm to children or vulnerable adults. So the point is, they give a list of relevant conduct which could potentially get someone banned, some of which I stress is not necessarily criminal, but then they put in this caveat to say, even if they haven't done one of the things we've listed, you can use your judgment. You can decide that this person is a bad person. So they don't need to be accused of breaking any particular guidelines, code of conduct, or of any crime before the state can throw them out of their job. But here's the great stuff. Nothing actually needs to be proven against them. As the vetting and barring scheme's documentation makes clear, decisions are made on the balance of probabilities. So this means, and I'm quoting from the scheme's guidance here, that even if people have been acquitted already in a court of law, after being accused of a crime because they've been found innocent, even if they have already been acquitted, the vetting and barring scheme will potentially look into the allegations because, as they state, their burden of proof is lower. So you don't have to think of a crime. Whatever you do think of doesn't have to be proven against them. And what's better is that you don't have to worry about being cross-examined on the story you tell. Unlike a court of law, in which the accused may mount a full defence, here the accused is simply entitled to make a so-called representation stating their case. And finally, let me reassure you once again, even though the vetting and barring scheme, even though it operates entirely outside the judicial system, even though it lacks due process, it has the life-ruining capacity of many a court case. Imagine a teacher you don't like, in his late 30s, being thrown out of their job, and being told, upon pain of imprisonment, they may not work in their field again. Well, there is a strong probability they will probably never work again. Can you imagine their next interview, when they are asked, why did you leave your last job? Well, I was deemed unsuitable for working with kids. Yep, that will not wash. That will not wash. They will not get a job again. So, here we have a brilliant way of ruining innocent people's lives. Okay, joke over. This is not ridiculous. This is obscene. We've got a perfect storm brewing which will almost certainly ruin the lives of innocent people. There's several things going on. First, millions of people are being put through this vetting and barring scheme. Secondly, as I have stated, people are going to be condemned for things that cannot be proven against them. They will be condemned for things we cannot know for certain. And finally, this is taking place within a society in which false accusations against adults are sadly 10 a penny. Some won't believe this, but a recent study by the Association of Teachers and Lecturers found that nearly 30% of teachers had faced false accusations by pupils, and a sixth had faced false accusations from families. So this is the context in which false allegations flying around, this is the context in which people will be judged and condemned for things that cannot be proven. This is dangerous, and it seems obvious that with this amount of people going through the scheme, this openness to banning people for things that cannot be proven, it seems obvious that with all these factors combined, that innocent lives are going to be ruined, almost inevitable. You won't hear about it, people aren't going to ring up the papers and say, I was barred by the government from working with kids. But innocent lives will be ruined, and perhaps the government don't get this. Perhaps they do get it. Perhaps they simply think that throwing a few adults to the wall is a price worth paying for safety. But it certainly seems deeply unjust. So it's dangerous to innocent professionals, and it's also a quite horrendous attack on our liberties. One of the most ancient principles of a free society is that of residual freedom, of the right to do that which has not been explicitly forbidden. It's there in the Magna Carta. A man may not be imprisoned or otherwise destroyed except by the law or by the lawful judgment of his peers. Now, the vetting and barring scheme will certainly have people otherwise destroyed. It will destroy people, and it may well do so without reference to the law. An individual does not even have to be accused of a criminal offence. Any behaviour or action can potentially be used as evidence of their unsuitability, and used, therefore, to ruin their life by the government upon pain of imprisonment. So, whereas the law has traditionally set the parameters within which the state may punish the individual, those who work with young people no longer enjoy this luxury. So, I've spoken about innocence and I've spoken about liberty, and perhaps I could just conclude this, the third of Reuben's rants, by saying that we owe teachers better. I mean, these are people who give their lives to educating the next generation. Obviously, often educating the next generation against a hurricane, educating people sometimes who don't want to be educated, picking up the pieces of parental failure, dealing with people who are uncooperative, violent sometimes, disruptive, dealing with them on a daily basis, and while they're at it, trying to give them an education. It's a cliche, but these people are at the coalface. We as a society have put them at the coalface, and we really owe them more than to throw some of the innocent members of this profession to the wall, and to restrict the liberties like this of the rest of them. Thank you for listening. Bye.